the Opopco Studios in Oklahoma City. You're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Mike Sherman, standing in for a vacationing Barry Trammell. We've got a 5 and 5 special edition right now, uniform edition. Lots of talk going around about Oklahoma and whether they might be due a uniform change. So let's get right to it, Mike. First of all, true, false? OU should change its uniform.
Our readers love this topic. It's a trending story on News OK right now. There's a whole website called UniWatch. It's a great one. I wish I had thought of the idea because people love talking about uniforms. So here we are. The answer, however, is false. OU should not change its uniform. Change means I think they should tweak it. I think they should look for different options. But their main uniform, when they line up, when they go play Texas in the Cotton Bowl, it shouldn't be some sort of Nike Pro Combat look. They got to look like Oklahoma when they show up to play in the bowl game. And then when they show up to play Texas. However, tweaks are not bad.
Yeah, I don't think tweaks are bad either. And I think maybe a little variation here and there could be fun. You know, Oklahoma, obviously one of the more traditional uniforms in college football. When you look around and you see the Penn States and the Texases and teams that have really not changed their uniform in any measurable way for decades and decades. And Oklahoma definitely is part of that group. You know when you see that uniform that it's Oklahoma. So yeah, I think false, they shouldn't change it. But let's talk about tweaks. What about this question? The thing that should be changed most on the Sooners uniforms is?
Oh, I guess I'd leave the helmet alone. I'd say you can mess with a face mask. I like changing the color of the face mask and doing different stuff with that. I also don't mind so much if you do a few different things with the jersey. Don't go wearing red pants or crimson pants and crimson jerseys. Don't go messing with those combinations. I go face mask. How about that, Jenny?
Okay.
I change the face mask.
Okay, I can live with that. You know what? I've sort of changed my opinion on this very topic I'm about to bring up, but I think if I was going to change one thing, I don't think I'd change lettering or numbers or even helmets, but maybe work in a gray or a black part of the uniform. You know, maybe a black jersey with red pants or black jersey with white and it's got red on it, or gray even. Gray is something that's become a hot topic. Maybe work in something like that occasionally. I'm not saying don't go to the Cotton Bowl and play Texas in your gray or black uniform, but I could see a little change that way. It would really set some people on their ear, I assume.
What was that movie, Boomerang, where that guy kept going and said, you got to coordinate. The Sooners got to coordinate.
Well, that would be some coordination, that's for sure. Okay, so let's get down to serious brass tacks here. Percentage chance that OU will alter its uniform, let's say in the next 2 or 3 years.
Oh, I'd say 100%. I
Wow.
mean, I think when they start talking about stuff like this, and I think something's coming. I give it 100% that they will alter the uniform for some game sometime in the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And you know, a lot of this was, this talk was spurred along by our man Barry Trammell talking to Bob Stoops about the Baylor helmets. And if you happen to catch a picture of those, wow, they're just completely gold, very shiny, metallic. If you saw the Oregon helmets, I think it was last season at one point they had some helmets that were just like chrome. It's very much like that at Baylor. And I actually heard one player ask a Baylor player, "Are you going to wear those in a game?" And yes, they are going to wear those in a game, but it just seems like change and just doing little tweaks here and there is kind of fun. So, you know, something like that for a game. Now, I'm not saying gold helmets for the Sooners, but something like that, I could definitely see that happening. All right, let's talk about those traditional uniforms, Mike. What is the best traditional uniform in college football?
I'm going to go with Southern Cal, USC.
And you took my answer.
Shucks. Well, here's how much I like USC, Jenny. I like USC's uniform so much, I like Iowa State's uniforms. It must just be all in the color. But that, is it burgundy and bronze or burgundy and gold? I love those. In fact, I went out and bought a tie, one of those burgundy and striped, and everybody thought I was an Iowa State grad around here. No, those are the classic ones, the Trojan on the side. Sorry to take your answer.
No.
It's a pretty obvious one.
Well, they're so loved, Iowa State just stole them, and now that's what they wear. Yeah, I mean, I think the USC uniforms are great, but it's hard to argue against, you know, a Penn State running out in their traditional uniforms, Nebraska with the block end. Although, in talking about uniforms, Nebraska's going to change. They're going to be wearing a black uniform at one point this year. Michigan has changed some. Wisconsin has changed some. I mean, these are some traditional uniform type of places, and they're even tweaking. So don't be shocked if Oklahoma follows that trend of changing. But I think the Penn State uniforms, solid uniforms for sure. All right, lastly, do teams with ever-changing uniforms have an advantage in recruiting? I mean, isn't that sort of maybe an underlying big question to this whole thing is, these teams that change uniforms all the time and do this crazy cool stuff, does that give them any advantage in recruiting?
Well, it's a great startup approach. It's what teams that need an advantage, like Baylor and Maryland. My Maryland. My son loves the flag on that. I mean, of course, I like to look at them, but really, if you're an incumbent, you don't run like a startup. You don't run like a challenger. You do desperate things. It's going to be interesting to see. Now, Oregon is different. Oregon has gone all in, and its brand is its change. Oklahoma State too. But if you're OU and you're Notre Dame, I don't think you go there. So I think the advantage is temporary. It gets you in the conversation. It gets you noticed. But if you're Oklahoma and all of a sudden you're experiencing with a different kind of uniform, you look desperate. That's not an advantage, wouldn't be for Oklahoma.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to appear that way. But yeah, I mean, if you think about like when Maryland trotted out some of those interesting uniform combinations last year, I'll be nice. I mean, if you're on social media, which a lot of young recruits and players are, they became a team that was being talked about, and people would go watch them. And maybe if you never even thought much about Maryland football, you were there thinking about it. So I'm not sure it ultimately gives a team an advantage, but it might get a kid looking at a school, going to check out a game, just, and then, you never know where that might lead. So I think that it does generate some conversation. And I'll say this about the Oregon uniforms. This week they opened their brand new facility and had some photos that made their way around the internet. And one of the things they have in their new facility is uniforms over the years. It's a good thing Oregon changed their uniforms. They used to be really, really awful. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.